Hello, hello, and welcome. My name is Malin, like Melinda, but no duh. And if you are new here, so am I. Today, I wanted to talk about why you should read Old Man's War by John Scalzi. It is a science fiction book that was published back in 2005. So with this little series that I want to do with my channel, I want to talk about what the book is, who wrote it, the first line of the book, also reading the back of the book if there is a synopsis provided, and then going over who the main character is, why I like this book, and why I think you should also read it as well. So to get started, again, like I said, this is called Old Man's War. It is a science fiction book from '05. The back of the book is actually a pretty good sell for it. I was actually given this book upon recommendation by my sister, whose taste is actually pretty immaculate. So when she recommends me something to read, I read it because that's how I ended up reading Piranesi, which is one of my favorite books in the world. But today I want to talk about this one. We'll go ahead and get started with reading the back of the book to get started. The good news is that humanity finally made it to the stars. The bad news is that out there, planets fit to live on are scarce, and alien races willing to fight us for them are common. So we fight. Far from Earth, the war has been going on for decades, brutal, bloody, and unyielding. Earth itself is a backwater. The bulk of our resources are in the hands of the colonial defense forces, and everybody knows that when you reach retirement age, you can join up. The CDF doesn't want young people. They want people who carry the knowledge and skills of decades of living. You'll be taken off Earth, never to return. You'll serve 2 years in combat, and if you survive, you'll be given a homestead of your own on one of our hard-won planets. John Perry is taking that deal. He thinks he knows what to expect. But the actual fight, light years from home, is far, far harder than he can imagine, and what he will become is far stranger. Now that aspect is true. I want to talk about first the subversion of the science fiction trope in the first place by using old men as the main character. This man is 75 years old and is joining the army, right? Enlisting to go fight aliens in space. And so that's already interesting. We don't have some like Ender's Game where we get to see him at 6 years old slowly moving up the ranks until he's like 13 committing genocide on aliens. One of the most depressing books in the world, but also good. Although Orson Scott Card. Anyway, but already super interesting that it's old men joining this war to go fight. It's not young people. It's not your stereotypical 18 to 21-year-old. I already know the whole world and how it works, but you get a rude awakening when you're there. These people have lived. They have lived. They have seen people die. They know people who have died. They've seen it. They've watched it happen. They're lonely and they're joining the war. Most of them by themselves, right? Again, these people are 75 years old. For the most part, John included, yes. The main character's name is also John, super creative, but I also wonder if that was part of the point and part of the joke. But like I said, everybody who's joining this is very lonely. They have nothing else to lose, and that in and of itself is a super interesting concept. Plus, with the whole what he will become is far stranger. I think that what they did with augmented bodies is really interesting. You get, not to spoil too much of the book, but one of the things that I really did enjoy was how the augmented bodies worked. Not only did you get an upgrade where you're back into your younger self, but you're physically fitter and prettier and all that kind of stuff, but you also get something that's called a brain pilot installed into your mind, kind of like Black Mirror-esque. You know, you get to telepathically communicate with your teammates without having to speak, which that was actually an inspiration for me when I wrote a short story and I had something similar called a neural in it that actually was inspired by how they use this in these books, which I thought was a lot of fun. First things first, I do want to talk about the first line of the book, what's absolutely hooking you into this, and it's actually already on the back of the book as well because it is that good, right? It really just encapsulates what this book is going to be about. What are we going to read here? John Perry did 2 things on his 75th birthday. First, he visited his wife's grave, then he joined the army. That's so good. That is such a great hook, great start to the book. 75 years old, joining the army. Like, as a new reader going into the book, what is he talking about? Where are we going? Why are we doing this? How did your wife die? How are you feeling about your wife dying? We get to know all of this throughout the book. I think the way that John Scalzi handles the incredible fucking witty ass humor throughout the book with a really heartfelt, I am an old man. I am very lonely. I've got nothing else to lose. I'm missing a part of myself and I need fulfillment in another way. And he uses joining Space Army as a way to do that. And I think that's so interesting. I think the humor is so fucking funny. I would go on walks around the neighborhood that I live in this area, go read by the docks, like watching the boats pass by. And I would just be sitting there like, out loud in public, like any normal person does. So I think that that's really great. Like, if a book can make you laugh, that's solid. I feel like books can really make you feel a lot of things, really sad, deep feelings, but humor is something that I feel like is a lot harder for authors to touch on, and John Scalzi does a great job with this one. Also, really quick, before I talk, I wanted to read a couple of excerpts from certain pages early on in the book, just to give you a taste of what the narrative style is and how the book actually conveys its humor really well. Before I did that, I wanted to show you guys, look how cute this mug is! Look at all the birds. So I recently got into bird watching as a hobby because I didn't want to get myself too burnt out on writing and proofreading, running my beta reading business and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to do something new that was just for me. And when I saw, let's see, where is she? When I saw this mug in the antique store, I was shopping with my best friend of 15 years. Huge milestone, by the way. Go me and Savannah. But I saw this mug from across the room and knew that I had to get it because in our high school biology class, Miss Meacham made us do an animal biology report. Basically, we had to draw animals from a hat, and that's the animal that you would do your report on. And mine was the ruby-throated hummingbird. And so I saw this and knew that I had to have it. So continuing on reading some of the pages here, I want to start with page 16. You don't need too much context for all of these little things that I'll be reading from. For this first one, John is finishing up his enlistment for the Army. The secretary gal is kind of just going over everything. This is what you need to do. Sign here, sign here, sign here. These are the rules, this, that, and the third. Signing like Mike Wazowski, secretary from Monsters, Inc. But she's just going over the last things here. She continued in her distressing matter-of-fact tone. Distressing matter-of-fact. Have you ever been at a bank or even getting food at a fast food place or picking something up and you can just tell that the employee is just not having it? They're like, okay, thanks. They get the job done and they help you out, but they're just completely distressingly matter-of-fact. What a great diction. And so she's going over, she's like, just call me here. If I'm not here, an automated call responder will take your name. Once we've verified that it's actually you requesting cancellation of enlistment, so they're talking about what if I don't want to do this anymore, you will be released under no obligation. Bear in mind that such a cancellation permanently bars you from future enlistment, and this is a one-time thing. And for good reason, right? When you enlist, because they are so old, they are marked as legally deceased the minute that they are enlisted. So they have to go into space and fight. If they decided to remain in the backwater of Earth, for example, since they're legally dead, they wouldn't be able to do anything. They can't buy anything. They can't survive. So you sign that contract, you are owned by Colonial Defense Union, or the forces. I think there's 2 different ones. But he says, got it. Do you need me to swear in? Nope, she said. I just need to process this form and give you your ticket. She turned back to her computer, typed for a few minutes, and then pressed the enter key. The computer is generating your ticket now, she said. It'll be a minute. Okay, I said. Mind if I ask you a question? I'm married, she said. That's not what I was going to ask. Do people really proposition you? All the time. It's really annoying. It's just without even wondering what he's actually going to ask her, she's just like, I'm married. And that's just an early instance of just the quick humor that John has throughout this book. Another one is on page 37. So it's the start of chapter 3. They've already enlisted. I think they're waiting to get onto a ship to take them out into the big space, but I don't totally remember. But they're eating in the cafeteria, and this guy goes, I don't know about you two, Jesse was saying to me and Harry, but so far, this really isn't what I expected the Army to be. It's not so bad, I said. Here, have another donut. It's not so bad. We have an endless stream of donuts in the back. Come on. And they eat such garbage on this ship. I think partly because they know that they're about to get their augmented bodies. So it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. They can eat whatever the fuck they want because they're just going to go get Captain America in a couple of days. But I thought that was funny. Just here, have another donut. And they continue this on just with the humor. They start talking about some of the aliens that are out there in space. They are so fucking creative, so unique. I think that they could fit in an encyclopedia of their own. I feel like the way that they were created, they're so tangible, palpable in your head. You can easily picture them. They're not all humanoid looking and then just one small variance, or bipedal and that's then they have the big heads with the big black eyes. Each alien race has a specific way of looking that's unique to them. They have cultures that are unique to them. One of the ones that they do is they're described as cute, right? These little deer, fawn looking Bambi ass little aliens walking around. And so they go to colonize one of the planets that they live on, and they leave a settlement there for a while. And that's what they do, is they put a settlement on a planet and they're try to live here. And so they did, but when they went back to go check on the colony, they found meat houses of humans, kids and adults, butchered. I laugh. I'm sorry I laugh because I cope. But people are butchered the way that we would butcher pigs and cows. Humans are strung up in these things by the cute little Bambi looking aliens. But the fugly aliens that are like super blobs and big and scary and like intimidating looking are like the vegan equivalent of the aliens. There's another one called a Gehar. They have bad table manners based on the description here. They were one of the first intelligent aliens humans encountered in the days before the colonial union established its monopoly on space travel. Nice enough people, but they ate by injecting their food with acid from dozens of thin head tentacles and then noisily slurping the resulting goop into an orifice. Messy. Period. Messy. That's just so funny to me. And I just like, this book is littered with little moments like that. Just little, you know, just the internal. I think John is such a solid character. And what's cool is there are multiple books in this series. So the next one's called Ghost Brigades. Then there is Zoe's Tale and then Human Division right after that. So there are multiple books in between this one and Human Division. And those two are the ones where John is the main character narrating the majority of the story. But it stays consistent. His voice stays consistent. Not to say that he's not having like a character arc, but like John's essence, John Perry, the character's essence, doesn't change from books 1 to 4, even with multiple books in between there from different character points of views. And I think that is just a testament to the kind of craft that John Scalzi has honed over the years. I think that is such a great testament to who he is as a writer and a creative. And I can only admire that about him, is like your main character in book 1 still sounds like himself in book 4. I think that is fantastic. The last one is, one of the last things is like on page 65, they're talking about John's roommate died. It sounds like it was like a heart attack. He had like clogged heart arteries. I'm not a fucking doctor. He had heart problems and then he died. And so John's feeling really guilty. He's like, if I had woken him up and made him go to breakfast, and maybe he would have been up and about more and had more of an excuse. Since I'm already up, I'll go to the doctor. They were only like a couple of days away of getting their augmented bodies at this point. And so he's feeling pretty bad that his roommate died. And his classmates, you know, his cohort are just comforting him. They're like, people die. We're old. We're getting there. It happens. And then Harry chimes in and he's like, well, I remember. And Susan goes, oh my God, this is going to be so bad. And he just continues without missing a beat. I remember in college that if your roommate died, you got to skip finals, you know, and because of the trauma. Oh my God, my animals are insane. But, you know, because of the trauma, it's just like, that is such millennial core humor. And it's not to say that John Scalzi is like a millennial. I'm actually not totally sure. But I feel like this kind of humor encompasses or reaches multiple generations and isn't just strictly set to one. So I feel like readers of all ages can enjoy, oh my God, my light died, enjoy the humor that's littered throughout this book. We're back, baby. The last thing that I really wanted to touch on is not just the humor of this book, but the way that John Scalzi is expertly handling the humor mixed in with the themes of loss, tragedy, loneliness, just those very deep human emotions that a lot of us are ashamed to actually experience. Like, one of the emotions that I have a lot of shame revolving around is my anger. And so loneliness, sadness, depression, especially in men, especially in older men, you know, who have lived their lives and are supposed to be manly men. I think that that is touched on so well in this book through a humorous lens. I feel like that only serves the story even more. And again, I feel like the subversion of the genre with young people and young gung-ho soldiers joining in the army, but having a man who has already lived his entire life joining the army. Like they said, they want people who have skills from decades of living. I think that serves the story in such a unique way and really gives it a human heart that I feel like is missing in some science fiction stories. Like, a lot of them come away with a sense of dread. I mean, that is pretty much it. Like, the way that you're given a second chance at life, what are you going to do with it? And this book, funnily, humorously, and seriously explores that topic. They talk about corporations and the morals surrounding corporations and how they run, owning people, having contracts on your own life, and body as well. There is like bodily autonomy discussions in this book as well, which I think are handled super, super well. But that is pretty much it. Those are my final thoughts. Again, I really think you should read Old Man's War by John Scalzi. I think it's really funny. I think it's a lot of fun if you like science fiction. It's actually a really quick read. You can read it in a couple of days if you've got a couple hours before or after work or during your lunch period, all of that kind of stuff. And again, if you have made it this far into the video and listened to me ramble and talk, I want to thank you so kindly for sticking around and supporting my channel. I'm hoping to do more of the Why You Should Read series in the future. So if you have a book that you'd like to recommend to me, leave it down below in the comments and let me know what you thought of this video. I will see y'all in the next one.